The actor Chaim Topol died last week. He was an Israeli actor that probably most popularly known for the film Fiddler on the Roof, but which I, and I hope many other folks will remember fondly as Dr. Zharkov from the 1980 Flash Gordon film. His passing just brought up that movie again, which I actually think about fairly often. Just as a funny aside, I've gotten my daughter hooked on Queen's Flash Gordon theme song, and so we have it on several playlists, and it's always great when we're in the car driving or we're at home, and all of a sudden you hear from a speaker, "Clytus, I'm bored." In any event, when I was thinking about Flash Gordon and how much I love that movie despite all its flaws, is that what a great setting it would be for some sort of fantasy, sci-fantasy type of game. I just love the backdrop of the empire, the galactic empire of Ming the Merciless, all the jockeying and position of these various noble houses. I love the different planets. I'm sure it's a little bit cheesy. It's kind of funny in that the video game sense of here's Phrygia, the ice planet. Here's Arborea, the forest planet. Here's the hawk folk, hawk men, hawk people in their flying city. Yeah, they're all kind of one note. It's like that old, like the old, I don't know if it's gag, but the old trope in Star Trek where they go to a planet and it's all the planet of the one kind of thing. But it kind of works because in the movie, and my experience with Flash Gordon is totally through the movie. I never read the comics or the comic strips. I never read any of the serials. In the movie, they almost feel like fragments, like there was some massive rock or planet in primordial times that got blown up in all these bits. And it feels like, okay, here's the bit that's floating over there. That was some forest. Here's the bit that was their Arctic region, or all these bits floating around, and then Ming kind of united them. I know that's not really what it's supposed to be. I think they are supposed to be all just planets, but still that's kind of my image of them. And I feel like thinking of them as fragments of this larger thing that was destroyed or split up somehow and now is being knit back together through political means is an interesting idea. And that's kind of the whole point of this, really, is Flash Gordon as a setting, it's kind of interesting. I love just the clouds, the swirling fluorescent clouds that seem to just wrap around everything. I think they have a meaning. I don't know exactly. I think the movie just makes just a little bit of a mention of some sort of force field or other kind of thing that Ming has set up that's kind of a defensive perimeter around his empire. But just as a backdrop, it really reinforces the kind of colorful, swashbuckling nature. Of course, folks will probably remember that, you know, part of the Star Wars formative fiction that helped the appendix end for Lucas, so to speak, for Star Wars, part of that was Flash Gordon. I think originally he wanted it to be Flash Gordon and he couldn't get the rights, and he ended up with Star Wars. So I think taking those elements, these different geographic regions, and of course you can get more complicated, but I kind of like in this sort of setting just simple, scattering them out through not quite a void, because clearly it's breathable. I don't know what's going on there, but there's some sort of atmosphere as Flash riding along on rocket scooters, has no helmet. The Hawkmen are flying around without any kind of air apparatus. So clearly maybe Ming has done something. The phlogiston is thick with oxygen enough to breathe. And you can kind of point crawl it would be interesting to come up with some kind of hex crawling system for going in between these different spaces. Of course, if you're into spell jamming or want to get into spell jamming, there's a perfect opportunity to kind of ease your way in there because there's atmosphere everywhere. If you were going to get really into the nitty gritty of spell jamming and the oxygen envelopes and all that stuff, you can kind of leave it aside because at least within Ming's domain, you don't need it. Then, of course, you have Ming himself, which is a wonderful big bad evil guy. Could be something that your party is up against directly or just in the background with all these other forces all maneuvering underneath him. And, of course, you could have sort of rebellions and revolts and all that sort of fun stuff. And one of the things I like about the film, and I'm guessing this is from the source material, is you can really have lots of different cultures. Now, these cultures are, again, fairly stereotypical. They're not really well fleshed out. The Hawkmen, I mean, they're cool. and they fly around, but that you don't really know much more than that about them. There's the Arborean creature barons folk who seem to dress up kind of like Robin Hood, but without the long pointy caps, and stick their hands and test themselves against some kind of creature that lives in a tree stump, which is wonderfully evocative. But we don't know much more about that. We never see any of the cultural stuff, at least in the movie. We never see what these societies are like. We never get to walk around in Mongo City and just check it out. It's really just the palace that we get involved with. So there's a lot of things that we would both need to develop or look to other Flash Gordon materials to flesh out. But I think there's a lot of meat on that bone. I think it'll be a really interesting setting to play around with. It's certainly one that I would jump to play in if someone said, hey, we're playing in Flash Gordon, whether you're an Earthling, whether you're a Hawkman, whether you're someone from Phrygia, who knows, or from some other place entirely, I'd be down to play. Rest in peace, Rest in peace, Topol. And it's funny because his name was Chaim Topol, but in Flash Gordon, the credits, he's just as Topol. And I think I saw some other movies with him in it where he was just Topol. But in any case, rest in peace, Topol. You will be greatly missed. Dr. Zharkov will live forever. Flash saved us all. Game on. And I'll talk to you later.